Welcome to Musings from Arledge and day 2 of Pat Ruel. Pat, welcome back.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be back.
Your first interview was a big hit. I think that was probably the first time that most USC fans had sort of gotten a glimpse from the inner workings of the golden years during Pete Carroll, and so it's pretty exciting. In fact, it went so well, there's a bunch of stuff we didn't get to talk about. So I want to hit some of that stuff today, including your book, which we'll talk about in a second, some of the assistant coaches you worked with at USC, and we'll talk about offensive linemen, how you find offensive linemen, what you're looking for, and all the rest. So let's get started with your book. You're writing a book. What's the book about?
The book is about my journey through football, and when I was writing, I was going to write a book on an offensive line manual, and all of a sudden, a guy came up and said, "Hey, you got all these. You worked with Coughlin and Mike Sherman, and Greg Williams and Nick Saban, and Jackie Sherrill and Lou Holtz and Pete Carroll, and then they go, you got to have some stories." I go, "Oh yeah, I got them." And so I said, "But I want to write this offensive line manual." And then they go, "No, you know what? The lady who was going to help me was she wrote a book that ended up on the bestseller list, New York Times bestseller list. And so she tells me, 'Hey, I want you to write like 10 little paragraphs on 10 stories you might want to tell in the book.'" So I did. And I wasn't even sure I wanted to do it. And she came up, she goes, "This will be a great book. Unbelievable book." She goes, "You got good stuff. You got people's names that people recognize. You got incidences that people would like to hear. You got personal stuff." And so anyway, I just started it with my giving up. I mean, I'm at the university or in Coral Gables, Florida, getting ready to go to Coral Gables High School, and I was on the country club swim team, and I had medals for freestyle and breaststroke, and everybody thought I was going to be a great swimmer. And next thing I know, I went out on a day that they canceled school because Hurricane Betsy was hitting Florida. And after it hit Florida, it left all this rain there. And we all went out and played football. We had no out of bounds. We had no goal lines. We just were catching the ball and running with the ball, getting tackled, making diving catches in 8 inches of water. Now, if you don't think that wasn't the most fun I've ever had in my entire life, I was having so much fun. I went home that day and went, "Hey, Dad, I want to play football. I don't want to swim." Because swimming never gave me that feeling of camaraderie, of physical contact, of, just that kind of enjoyment. And Dad told me, he said, "Hey, if you're going to go out, I don't want you to quit, and I want you to have passion to be good at it." And, so it's kind of a metamorphosis how I switched over and became a football player on a team that won the national championship, back in 1968, 67. So, back then, how they did a national championship was everybody all the state champions sent their film in, and they graded you based on performance and all that kind of stuff and talent on your team. Well, I think we had 7 or 8 guys that went Division I, so we had a big advantage. We had a good bunch of players. But anyway, that's where my football started. And then I had a really rough coach in college, and so I wrote about him, and I wrote about how we learn a lot from how not to do things.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think, we should have an attitude of gratitude towards being exposed to some of those people who showed me how not to do things. And because when you have that knowledge and you mix it with the knowledge of how to do things, you can go a long way. You can set your path and be successful and be admired for your principles and your ethics. And, my father's an FBI agent, and, he wanted me to have passion. He wanted me to be generous. He wanted me to have high standards and ethics. And so I started writing this book, and the rest is just my history of going through different environments, different cultures, working with different head coaches. And, my daughter works for Apple Plus. She looked at it and goes, "Oh my gosh, Dad, you get so much content in here. This is going to be a great book." I'm like, I'm just telling stories, that's all I'm doing. But I'm learning how, when you write, you got to show the story, which has really been difficult for me because, I was always, a good storyteller, but I was not good at writing. But I've become better.
Yeah.
with Ingrid Rick's help, I've become better.
Yeah, well, practice and a good tutor will do that. So let's talk about. Let's go through some of the coaches that you've coached for. Let's talk about what you've learned from each of those guys. Let's start with Nick Saban. What did you learn from Nick Saban?
The biggest thing I learned from Nick was commitment and discipline. He was so committed to not only doing football really well, but recruiting, which a lot of the head coaches I worked for, in college did not look at recruiting the same way they looked at football. Their football was totally immersed into it, and recruiting was something they wanted to get it done and get it over with. Nick was not like that. Nick was about, hey, I want to get the best players, I want to recruit the best players, and I want to have the best football team. And I mean, he was ambitiously trying to do everything well, which that, and his drawback was that his personal life became kind of secondary.
Yeah.
Which, when I look around at other guys like coach, like with Pete had those same qualities, except for Pete was about enjoying the moment, making sure that you're having fun doing what you're doing, making sure you're finding the best ways to teach. But he was a much more kind of cerebral approach. He wanted it to be fun for the coaches and fun for the players, but he wanted us to stay on top of the new trends and those kind of things that are happening, so that we can always, be in this relentless pursuit to be excellent. But he did it so smoothly. Nick was a little bit more of a hammer. He's a hammer. Pete was more of a wrench. He just tightened the bolts.
So let me ask you about, you mentioned fun and Pete, and it's hard to think about Pete Carroll without thinking about fun. One of the quotes I remember, this was before I think the year before you got to USC, and it was USC Cal at the Coliseum. Cal had Aaron Rodgers and Marshawn Lynch. It was a good football team, and Rodgers completed like his first 23 passes that day, and Cal's down I think 4, and they have a 1st and goal at the 9 with just a minute or 2 left, and USC has a timeout, and the story that I read in the press was that Pete gets his defense together and he looks at everybody and says, some of the words to the effect of, "Isn't this great? I mean, isn't this fun?" I'm thinking, most of the people in the stadium are thinking, not really all that fun, kind of stressful. And then, it was that same year, USC Oklahoma getting ready for the Orange Bowl for the national title. And I remember they showed at the same time on television, they showed Pete and they showed Bob Stoops. Bob Stoops is a great football coach. But the look, Pete was smiling, he was laughing, he was throwing the football back and forth. Bob Stoops looked like there was 1,000 pounds on top of his shoulders. And the difference between those two guys and what they conveyed to the public about their approach couldn't be more different.
Right.
So I've always had a theory. You tell me whether I'm right. I always had a theory that USC under Pete Carroll played their best in the big games because the team was always loose, because Pete was loose. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah. Pete wanted them to know they were going to win, and you can't make players know that they're going to win without proper preparation, number one, and number two is taking the pressure off of them. We take the pressure off of them and just say, hey, let's just go out and have a good time and show them who we are. Don't worry about this. Yeah, these are quotes from Pete. Don't worry about the score. It doesn't matter in the first quarter. It doesn't matter in the second quarter. It doesn't matter. Hey, when it gets down to the fourth quarter, we'll win because that's what we do. And I mean, that's the way he talked, you know. And so he was always, you know, it was about performing. Let's go out and perform. You know, other guys were a little more hard-nosed about it. It's like there's more fear involved. Yeah. You better or else. Well, that puts the pressure back on them a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that that's not Pete's style. Pete's style is, hey, even in the Super Bowl that we lost, he took the entire blame for the call, and you know that's his job as a head coach. But he does that job better than most head coaches. Yeah, he does it better than most head coaches because he protects his players in a way that he feels like if they're going to go out there and give that kind of effort and work as hard as they do for me, then I will protect them. And so he's, you know, and he's always, you've seen the sidelines. He turned around and guys that weren't playing, get off the bench and enjoy this game. You know, it's going to be your turn in a year or two. You know what I mean? And so they get up and they jump around. They'd be, you know, rocking back and forth and having a good time. And some people look at it like it was unsportsmanlike, but it had nothing. This was about him teaching them to let your feelings go and live in the moment, live in the present. Don't worry about the future. Don't worry about past. Live in the present. And he was so good. That's part of his culture. He was so good at teaching that. Players loved it, and you know, even when I was at Seattle, you know, guys would go, and then they come back and go, God, I miss this place so much, and I can't believe I left, and you know, and you're like, you know, then you get a guy from, you know, Bill Belichick, and it was like, oh, it's like a concentration camp there. Oh, it's like, you know, like this. But hey, you know. There's a lot of ways to win, you know.
You can't argue with Bill Belichick's ability to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I would never say Bill Belichick's a bad coach. He's got his own style. Pete's got his own style. You know. So
let's talk about another all-time great that you coached under, Lou Holtz. What'd you learn from Lou?
That just because you're 50 years old doesn't mean that you are. Can control your emotions and that you are what I learned from him, I learned that narcissism is really bad.
Interesting. Okay, I can't leave it at that. Explain.
Well, he had us all write, you know, we all had to write a chapter for his book, The Grass is Greener.
Yeah.
But I didn't see anybody's name on it but his. And he was abusive with coaches and sometimes abusive with players. And he always tried to act like a tough guy, but I thought he was one of the least tough coaches I've ever been around. You know, I think sometimes guys, and my dad said it a long time ago, he goes, you know, the guys that don't talk tough are the quiet ones. He goes, those are usually your tough guys. He says, not the guys that have to brag about that they're tough, you know. And, you know, Lou, you know, Lou was, he was a little bit win at all costs. I don't care how we do it, we win at all costs, you know. And that opens the door to a lot of stuff. And, you know, Jackie Sherrill was a little bit like that, you know, win at all costs. It means that, hey, lying's okay, cheating's okay, but it's all okay because winning's the answer. Pete was win the right way. You'll enjoy it a lot better. That's what his, which.
So what did Lou do right? I mean, he was successful in enough places that
He coached fear. He coached fear. He coached fear. He was at Notre Dame, and I think he fired like some 30-some coaches when he was there. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, Lou, I mean, do you not know who you're hiring, or are you just looking for somebody to blame?"
Yeah.
And he obviously didn't like that very much. But my point is, hey, those coaches have families, and they come in there wanting to. He hired them. They come in there wanting to work hard and have the job, but all of a sudden, Lou's game plan didn't work, and they lost a game here, lost a game there. Well, let's see. Let me blame the line coach, or let me blame the offensive coordinator, or let me blame the defensive guy. Boom, there's 3 guys out. And next year, there's 3, 4 more guys out. Next year, there's 2, 3 more guys out. And I'm like, it just bugged me. It bugged me that, hey, it bugged me. As a head coach, I always felt when I look at really good head coaches are teaching their assistants how to be really good coaches. That's what they do.
Mm.
And if you have a head coach that can't help you, can't teach you, or doesn't want to, and it's, I don't know. Anyway, I mean, he would throw things in meetings. He threw canisters of film at a guy, threw a hamburger at me.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote my book. I said, I think I said I'm at Arkansas, but I feel like I'm at a home for wayward kids. Like, we got kids that are just, I mean, we go in a meeting, we're throwing stuff, we're yelling in. I'm like, it was just a little over the top,
Yeah.
And I think the players were afraid of him to a certain degree. Why? Because that's the persona he wanted to have.
Right.
Did he look like somebody you should be afraid of? Absolutely not.
No.
No.
Yeah.
So anyway,
how about Jackie Sherrill? What'd you learn from Jackie Sherrill?
Honesty is the best policy.
This is another.
No, Jackie was he was a blowhard. He would say, "I invented this, I did that, I did," and we all knew he didn't do half of the shit he said. So I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. But we knew he didn't do half of what he said, and I mean, I think some head coaches, when they become head coaches, it's like they become different than who they were as an assistant coach, And anyway, my point is Jackie was constantly trying to do things. He kind of needed affirmation all the time. Affirmation. He wanted people to tell him how good he was doing. He wanted people, and to me, that was a sign of issues that he had, and the fact that he would win at all costs. I mean, we cheated. Hey, that's why I said, hey, I've seen the cheating.
Yeah.
I know it cheating. I know exactly what it looks like. SC didn't do anything. Nothing. No coaches did anything. No administrators did anything. Did some stepfather do something? Yes, but nothing. We didn't do it. Coach was constantly saying, "Hey, we live in a fishbowl. Do everything right. Do everything right. Do not. There's no excuse for doing anything wrong." And then he'd say, "Look at that lousy weight room we have down there. Think of all the great athletes that worked out there." That's what we got to tell them. Yeah, it's a shitty weight room, but we're going to tell them, hey, this guy worked out. Anthony Munoz worked out there. This guy worked out there. Anthony Davis. Mike Garrett. Just he starts naming all the great athletes that USC has, and the kid's eyes light up. And so he just he did things a lot differently. I'll just say this. It's all in my book. There's a lot of juicy information. But I didn't write it to do that. I wrote it to talk about my life experiences and dealing with different head coaches and how they were, and like even Tom Coughlin was he was one of the least balanced guys I've ever been. He was totally committed to football.
Yeah.
I'm talking about totally committed. I mean, I don't even think it was Mother's Day. I mean, I don't think he knew it was Mother's Day when he kept us in on Sunday for more than half the day, and all the moms were upset. It was off season.
Yeah.
All the wives were all upset, and I'm going, I don't even think he knew.
Yeah.
Like he's so consumed with football. Like I said, Pete would finish practice, get a bite to eat, and then he'd go in and call his kids, talk to each one of his kids. And then sometimes, as he got a little older, he had, one or two of his kids work with him. But he always talked to his daughter. I mean, when we were at SC, he talked to his kids all the time.
Yeah.
And I just think that there's, you look at Andy Reid. Andy Reid's, a wonderful coach and a very good person. But you wonder how much time he committed to being a great football coach, but didn't be a good father. I mean, in the end, we have to turn around and look at our team and look at our kids and say, hey, did I do a good job of raising this team to its potential? Did I do a good job raising my kids to their potential?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a simple thing, but I think it's hard for some people to do because we get so passionate about coaching and passionate about our job, or passionate about, maybe you're so passionate and you take this on because you love SC, but you can't. One thing you always got to remember, you got a family.
Yep. And
that family is your family, and you have to take care of your family. And if you don't do that, well, I don't. If you don't take care of your family, I don't value you as much as I do somebody like Pete, who tries to take care of his family. Yeah. And so, and what I mean by that, he's communicating with them all the time, talking to them, giving them advice, trying to help them out, that kind of stuff. I think sometimes I've even felt myself guilty of this. You get to working, and I'm leaving the facility at 12 o'clock at night. And then I'm back at 6 o'clock in the morning. Did I get to say hello to my daughter? No, I just went in there and kissed her on the cheek while she was sleeping.
Yeah.
So she doesn't see me for 3 days.
Yeah.
And so when it became springtime, I would take my daughter to school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just say, because we would ride together, and she'd listen to all my music.
Yeah. Well, let's talk. So you have coached for so many different coaches in so many different places, college and pro. You've seen a lot of stuff that works, and you've been in a lot of situations where it wasn't working at all. Let's talk a little bit about program culture. When Lincoln Riley gets hired at USC, I think it's clear to everybody that the culture of the program is fundamentally broken, and that he's going to have to turn it around.
Right.
So let's talk about what it means to turn around the culture of a program, and what it requires to have a good culture.
Well, let me just say this: being a nice guy, that's not building a culture.
Yeah.
A culture is built around respect, and coach uses that term, and he even asks sometimes the players to try to define respect. And the biggest thing he wanted in all of his players and his coaches is that they respect the guy that makes their meals, that they respect the guy that cleans the locker room, that they respect each other and the administrative staff. Respect is a very important key to having a good culture. That's number one. He developed 3 rules. The first rule is always protect the team. Well, you can take it home for your family. Yeah, I'm going to protect my family. But he didn't always protect the team, meaning this. For a player, it meant if you're out and one of your teammates is getting drunk or had too much to drink or he's being belligerent, You get him under control. You take him home. You know. In other words, protect our team. Do not allow guys to hurt the team. Okay, and so that was a rule. Okay, so you're creating a kind of a club where we all take care of each other and we all respect each other. Then he says, no whining, no complaining, no excuses. Rule number 2. And I love this rule because it's so easy to complain about what you don't have, or whine about what you don't have, or whine about what happened to you. You know, the biggest thing I can say about rule number 2 is be a problem solver, not a problem creator.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at number 2. Be a problem solver, not a problem creator. Okay. So that's another valuable part of the culture. And the third part of the culture was be early for meetings, be early for your individual meetings, be early for your staff meetings, be early. Why? Because it shows you want to learn. It shows that you're immersed into what we're doing, and it shows respect for everybody else. It's just be early. And, he's not talking like being 10 minutes early, but don't come in when the clock's, striking 12, because that's, you're going to be, everybody's going to look around and you're the guy that's late. That's so we very rarely have any problem with people being late to meetings. We don't have it. And then there would be some spot during the season, coach would go, okay, I know we got this no whining, no complaining, no excuses. He said, but I know you guys got some whining and complaining to do. So I'm going to let you do it for 5 minutes in this meeting.
Yeah.
And then one guy raises his hands. How come we don't have Cocoa Puffs on the training table? Another guy goes, hey, why do we only get one movie when we're on the road? Can't we get 2?
Yeah.
Anyway, we all laugh about it. But if your coaches understand it, then we would say to players, hey, you're a number 2 violator. You violated number 2. You're whining and complaining. Right. Stop it. Because how you speak, how you carry yourself has a lot to do with developing a good culture. And the other thing is, when we're competing against each other, we're not doing it against each other. It's with each other. So when the offense is going against the defense in a scrimmage, we're competing with each other to be good.
Yeah. He
doesn't want you to look at it like they're the enemy, because that again creates a bad culture. And so, and I've seen many examples of that in just corporate world. When I've been asked to speak about culture and effort and stuff like that, I see a lot of competing against each other going on in these corporate things. And yes, competition is fine, but you want to compete against your competition, not with those people you're directly working with.
Right.
You want to work together with those people, not, anyway.
So let me ask you this, because I had remember, and I'm not going to get the words right, but I had heard Pete say a number of times in the media talking about how long can we keep this going, right? It's one thing to take a storied program that's been down and put it in a position where it can have a great season. It's another thing to keep that going consistently without developing complacency and entitlement and the other things that can tear a program down. When you came to USC had won 2 straight national titles. It had won 20-something. It had lost one game essentially in the last, in the last 2.5 years. How do you deal with the complacency and entitlement problem once you get things rolling?
Well, I think that's number one. That's the head coach's. That's his primary. That is his primary job. I will cite him when he was at SC saying stuff like, we have to match our work ethic that we had last year. We have to match it. We can't get complacent. We got to match that work ethic. We got to go out there and compete. We got to have a passion to be successful. And this wasn't something he said, and then all of a sudden we win a national title, then go, oh, he drops it. No, he's already talking about it. After we went to the first Super Bowl in Seattle, he said, our whole purpose is to match the kind of effort and the kind of attitude that we had to go again. And it's the most difficult thing in the world because, I've never read a sports page since about 19. As a coach, I read it now more, but as a coach, I didn't read it from about 1978 on. I never read a sports page, not once, until the season was over.
Yeah.
Then I would read the sports page.
Yeah.
And because I believed in something that Coach Holtz said. He had a couple of things that I thought were really, he said, newspapers are either telling you how good you are, or they're telling you how bad you are. But the end result, you're neither. You're somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And he said that and so I decided, well, why would I read it and feel bad, or why would I read it and feel good? I don't wear my Super Bowl rings. I don't wear my bowl watches or any of that stuff. And part of the reason is I prefer to live in the present.
Yeah.
And that's number one. And number two is that I don't want to ever be defined by that stuff. So, but going back to the culture bit, is Pete's hardest issue that he has to deal with is he's constantly trying to save people. Constantly, he's trying to save them from themselves when they get a little too narcissistic or they get a little too full of themselves. He'll bring them in and try to talk to them about team and the importance of being a team guy and not trying to separate yourself and do all this kind of stuff. And anyway, make a long story short, he's been very successful in some and not so successful in others. But he's going to do it. Yeah. He's going to do it. Bill Belichick hears one word that you were not complaining about something. You're going to be playing for the Arizona Cardinals next week. That's the way he is.
Right.
Okay. Coach, the closest thing I think to a father to his team, because he cares about them. He cares about them. They're his guys, and he wants to take care of them. And so he's the closest thing to a father of the team rather than a dictator. There's certain guys that are dictators. You play hard for Pete. Here's a great phrase I like. Okay. I am because you are. I am kind because you're kind. I'm tough because you're tough. I'm tough. That's Pete. He's going to represent the things you need to be, but he's saying, I am because you are. I'm tough because you're tough.
Yeah.
I'm having fun. Yeah, I'm tough. I'm having fun because you're having fun. I'm truthful because you're truthful. And that's part of that respect, part. And so that culture is much more fun. For me, that culture is a lot more fun to coach in.
Yeah.
But it does have issues when you have players that can get out of line. And
let me ask you about this, because look, I think Pete Carroll is about the best big game coach I've ever seen. And if it's a rivalry game or a bowl game, if the lights are bright, Pete's teams are almost always going to play well.
Right.
Even that Rose Bowl against Texas, which we talked about last time, I don't want to bring it up again.
Thank you.
The first half wasn't played particularly well. There were some mistakes, but the second half, the offense marched up and down the field, did everything they want. I mean, that was another all-time great team they were playing. Pete's teams, when they had problems, it was usually a game where USC was clearly the better football team, right? I mean,
right.
Oregon State 2008. Oregon State was a good team that year. They were a ranked team. It's a road game. It's always tough to win on the road. But USC played about the worst half of football you'll ever see a Pete Carroll team play. And it's a crossing of a championship where USC had the best team in the country. That defense was about as good a defense as you'll ever see. USC had the best team in the country. They don't make the national title game because of a really bad first half in Corvallis. Is that the flip side of having a team that's always loose and always confident that sometimes you might skate through the first two quarters?
You know what, Pete never he approached every game like it was a championship game. So the players, it's hard to control what the players think. That's the, you can get a temperature from by asking them, what do you think? And stuff like this. But what happens is, they read the papers, they're told, they're unbeatable, they're best team ever, bada, 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 bada. And then coach is going, we got to do what we know how to do. We're going to go out there and, show them again why we are the best. We got to do it. Well, okay, that's good and everything, but to control the human emotions of 65, 70 players and get them all kind of on the same page is a very difficult job. And if you have like 3 or 4 guys that are just taking we can beat these guys, I don't like that. Well, then all of a sudden you have 10 guys like that. And that's why you play not very good in the first half, because they're thinking they don't have to go too hard to win. And, I always like looking at NBA basketball, because I go, my gosh, it looks like just a pickup walking game during the season. And then all of a sudden the playoffs start and the guys are diving for balls. And that's the way the game should be all the time. But when you play that many games, I think it's hard. In football, is a tough game to play week after week. So can you get up for every game? Absolutely. Coach believes every game can be a championship game. Absolutely. If you don't believe that, then you should never work for Coach Carroll. I mean, he believes that every game is a championship game. Now, can he convince the players and all the coaches? I don't know. I mean, I've seen a couple times where, like at Oregon State and a couple other places, where it didn't work. If I look back at a lot of those games, I go, well, we lost that one because we turned it over 5 times. They turned it over once. We turned it over 4 times. We got sloppy with the football. I mean, if we just stayed, committed to holding on to that football and not fumbling or throwing interceptions, we might have won 2 more national championships. I don't know.
Yeah. Have you been around a better college defense than that 2008 team with Cushing and Matthews and Malaga, Cedric Ellis? That was a pretty incredible crew.
Yeah, it was, and all they did was make the offense better. I think the only thing that we did wrong in the years post 2005 was we thought we had to go out and find a good running back. So instead of finding 1 or 2 good running backs, we found 5, and you never, And here's what I'm gonna say about it is, that's great and everything, but to keep them all happy, you're playing 5 guys. That does not work.
Yeah,
it does not work. We played, at the end of the year, we had each running back have 500 yards. I'm going, no, we should have. Who's our bell cow? That's when your team knows. When your team knew Reggie Bush and Linda, those are our bell cows. They knew. Well, that's called developing a confidence that's unusual. They'll take you to a championship game. When you don't know who your bell cow is and you're just playing and guys are just running in and out, I think it takes away from the idea of your identity. What is your identity? Your identity is not to play 4 backs. I used to get upset. I said, leave one of those guys in there. I said, what he sees in the first quarter, what he learns in the first quarter might open up everything in the second quarter for him. So just leave one guy in there. But we were so worried about losing 1 or 2 of them because they're all got egos and all this kind of stuff. So I think we just made a mistake in telling those kids, hey, you want to play, you got to be the guy.
Yeah.
So show me you're going to be the guy. And if you can't be the guy this year, then be it next year. But be the guy. Not everybody gets to play. That's everybody gets to play is not winning. That's saying, hey, we're just trying to keep people happy.
What's your impression? What's your impression with the job Lincoln Riley's doing at USC, and where do you think his program's headed?
Well, first of all, I met him in Seattle. He came up to visit Pete about, I think it was like in 2018 or 2000. Yeah, maybe 2000. Yeah, it was either 2018 or 2019. But he came up and visited Coach. And the primary purpose for a lot of these guys coming up is they just want to see, they've all heard about his culture and they want to just see kind of what it's about. And so Pete says, hey, why don't you hang out with him? I got to go do a couple of things. So I hung out with him. And the very first thing I said was, this guy's got it. He's got it. He's got charisma. He's intelligent. He loves the game and he loves working with players. And I said, Jesus, he's a lot like Pete. He is. He has a lot of that same, personality makeup.
Yeah.
And but we haven't seen him under fire yet. That's when you really find out how good you are.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden things didn't go right, we lost to Notre Dame, and turned around and lost to UCLA. Now, hey, let's see can you handle the press? Can you do your job as a head coach right then? Because that's when it gets difficult. And Pete was a master of it.
Yeah.
He knew he felt. I used to get mad at guys. Papadakis. He said they don't even want to go to the Rose Bowl. They don't care about going to the Rose Bowl. They've been 4 times in a row, and I saw him or 3 times in a row, and I saw him on the walk off the practice field. I said, hey, don't tell us what we do, what we don't like, and what we do like. I said, you didn't ask me. You didn't ask most of these players. We love going there. And I said, don't do that. And he goes, oh, well, you don't have any right to criticize. I said, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I criticize you. I'll tell you, hey, we want to be in the Rose Bowl. And I find the guy that said that to you. I want to talk to him. Well, he didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't. Pete goes, Pat, don't get in a pissing fight with those guys. They're going to say what they want to say. They're going to do what they want to do. Just be nice to them and know that what you're doing is going to be good enough, because we know the plan. We know how to do it. And you don't need to get in a side battle with those guys. And I was like, that's why you're good.
Yeah.
Because too many athletes and too many coaches get in these side battles with them. And it's no good. It's just no good.
So you coached at SC with 2 of the more well-known and controversial figures in recent USC football, Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian. They took over for Norm Chow. Norm Chow had a pretty great run at USC, obviously. Not a great one after he left, but he had a great one at USC. He did a great job at BYU. And then you have these 2 kids come in to replace him. What was your impression at the time of Sark and Lane?
Wonder boys. They were both of them were very well versed in the game, and for being so young, they were very well versed in the game, and had a good view. Especially Sark. Sark had a very big picture view of the game. Lane kind of looked at it from just his side, just the offensive side. Sark was a little bit more kind of team oriented with it, but they were wonder boys. They were guys that coach helped their careers along. And then I'm going to say this, hey, I got in a meeting. I was talking. Coach goes, Pat, let these younger guys talk. I know you know what you're doing. Like this, he's like, I want to hear these guys. And I was like a little offended by it, but then I realized he's trying to teach these young guys to have a philosophy and to have a plan. And he knew I already had one, so he wasn't worried about me. But the point is that he was trying to teach them, and if they would have, gone and made they both had about a 3-year period in their life where they were just a mess. Both of them were. They're a mess. Personal lives are a mess. I mean, both of them have been through divorces and all that stuff. Why? Why would they go through? Because their head got too big, too fast, and they just thought the world was theirs, and they didn't do anything to really earn it. Yeah. I mean, they're just part of coach's system, but they didn't do anything to earn that kind of stuff. And then secondly, once you earn it, if you change who you are, you're always making a mistake. You're always making a mistake. If somebody gave you $3 million and all of a sudden you're going to change your life, you're making a mistake. You should never change. People respect you for who you are, not for who I'm going to be now because I got all this money. I mean, it's just I think both of them got success too fast, too early, and got too careless with it. Yeah. And unfortunately, USC suffered through both of those times. And I was, I didn't even want to be on their staff. That tells you I didn't even want to be on those staffs. I didn't want nothing to do with them because it's really hard to jump from Pete Carroll to all of a sudden a more of an immaturity style. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so now, look at them now. I think both of them have matured. They figured out who they are. Kiff's always going to be a little bit outrageous, and Sark's going to be a little bit more calculating. Yeah. And that's just their personalities. But they're better now. They had too much. They were given too much too early. Yeah. in their coaching career, and sometimes guys can handle it, but those two guys could not.
My impression is, and I don't know either guy, but my impression is that Lane Kiffin probably is, he might be a good head coach right now. I suspect he's probably going to be a really good head coach who just wasn't ready at USC, wasn't mature enough to handle it. Right. It looks like right now he may have turned it around. My impression is the jury is still out on Sarkisian. I mean, he's at a place where you should be able to win and win big. He's a great recruiter. He's going to have an unbelievably talented roster at Texas. I've never seen toughness and discipline from his football teams, right, including last year's Texas team. I didn't see it at Washington. I didn't see it at USC.
All right. Now, that's a very insightful observation. What I'm going to say is that Pete knew how to be tough without being tough. Okay. Pete also had his one or two ass kickers on either side of the ball.
Yeah.
So Pete could be but his sergeants of arms would keep the offense and keep the defense a little bit in line because of their coaching style. In other words, they coached a little harder, asked for one more discipline, all that kind of stuff. And so that therefore Pete could have this complete fun culture environment, but there was a couple of guys were like Ed Ogeron. Yeah. I was kind of a guy on offense, but it was, we demanded the little things, that they do the little things and they do them right. And so Pete did the same, but it's not the same as, I'm with those guys. I'm with those guys a lot more than coach is. And so I have to instill the type of discipline in those players that will help us win. Yeah. And so does every other assistant coach. But if you got one or two guys on either side of the ball that you can't have, here's what you can't have. You can't have 10 Pete Carrolls. Yeah. You can't. It doesn't work. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you something. And you can't have 10 Belichicks. It does not work. Right. You have to have your nurturers and your enforcers. Yeah. And and sometimes the enforcer can be the nurturer when he wants to be. Sometimes the enforcer can be the nurturer. But generally, you have to have a couple of enforcers who are maintaining a strong discipline about doing what's right and doing it longer than the other guy.
Yeah.
Do what's right longer than the other guy. And so it's difficult to manage that. And I even told Coach, when I decided it was time for me to shut her down as a coach, I told him, I said, just make sure you got a guy on offense and a guy on defense. There's a little bit of it, because I said, Coach, too many guys want to try to be like you, and that's not a good. Yeah, some of the guys can try to be like you, but some of the guys, like for instance, I always believed it was better to kill one so that 99 others can survive.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you don't believe that, then you're always trying to save that one. And how does he affect the rest of the team? If he doesn't affect the rest of the team, it's okay. But if he affects the rest of the team in a bad way, well, then you might lose. Instead of saving 99 and killing one, you're only saving 70. Yeah. Because the rest of them are going with, and so that's where, and if you do it Bill's way, you're not having fun. You're doing your job, and it's not going to be as enjoyable for you. You're going to be walking on eggshells, worried about all that stuff, and it's just not as fun.
Yeah.
I think that most coaches try to do it the way Bill Belichick does it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of coaches out there that are trying to, do more like Pete. Like I think Lincoln's that way. I think Sark's kind of that way. He's trying to. That's why I said, I hope he has a good, tough guy on each side of the ball, because that helps him out a lot.
Yeah.
Because those guys that are like Pete, they're not into the hard disciplines and that kind of stuff. They don't want. They want their culture to be where you're fighting to stay in the culture. You're fighting to be in the culture. You love it there, and you don't want to lose it. That's what he wants. He wants those guys that love the culture so much that they don't want to lose it, so they'll keep in line. But we always have players that give them too much rope, and you got a problem. So, but like I said, there's nobody I respect more than Pete Carroll. As a football coach, as a family man, as a guy who has balance. My dad used to say balance is one of the most important words in the English language. And I used to say, why? He said, because you got balance. That means you can be pretty much good at anything. You might not be great at something, but you're pretty much good at everything. And so I think that's the way Coach looks at it. He wants to be great, but he knows that he has to have balance. And so he's always working towards that balance.
Do you have to have great attention to detail to be a great football coach? When you think about Saban and Belichick, you sort of think about that attention to detail. But do you have to have it, or can you get away? Can you be successful without it?
In my opinion, you cannot be successful without having attention to detail. When all things are even, it's the details, it's the little things that win for you. It's the guy who stays a little lower. It's the guy who, there's so many little things in a football game that you can point to. If this guy would have just, done a little better job on the block, that would have been a 30-yard touchdown. If this guy would have, whatever, it would have been this. And so you go through the film and you look at all the stuff. What you end up saying to yourself is, hey, little things win. Like Winston Justice, if he slides down and cuts that guy on the backside of the power, Lindell might hit himself might hit his head on the goalpost. Yeah. But he didn't. Yeah. It's a little thing, and it caught us at the wrong moment. Yeah. And and I put that squarely on me, and coach says to me, no, our defense sucked. We weren't very good that day. And I said, well, Coach, this is where you have to rely on the offense. And I said, if he would have just done this part right here, or if Reggie hadn't have done this, or if that, and then you start realizing, no, the whole game's made up of those plays. That,
Yeah.
you know, it's this play, it's that play, it's Vince Young with his knee on the ground, tossing the ball. There's so many little things that could have decided that game much differently. But the fact of the matter is, we lost. Got to live with it. It's the way it goes. It was one of the hardest losses I've ever been involved with, because in the second half we looked like we were just totally full control of the game, you know.
Yep.
But not so fast.
Yeah. And let me ask you this: is it possible to have a culture for a program where you foster one side of the ball, but not the other? There's some Big Ten teams like it. Mark D'Antonio and the coach at Iowa. They sort of, you know, defensively those guys seem to be great every year. Offensively, they seem to struggle. Lincoln Riley has some questions to answer ultimately about whether or not he can put together a championship level defense. He's the best offensive coach in the country. I mean, every single year, his offenses are lights out, and everybody wants to play for him on the offensive side because he's so good. He hasn't yet put together a championship defense. Is it possible to have a culture that's just too one-sided?
Yeah, it is. And oftentimes it's the head coach who, like Pete's coached defense his whole life, the same defense his whole life.
Yeah.
I was in the NFL. My first 3 years in the NFL, I coached 3 different offenses.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I was learning a lot of cool stuff and seeing a lot of different ways to do things. But there's a very, you know, there's a huge comfort value of being in a system so long that you know all the ins and outs. You know what hurts it. You know what to do if somebody's trying to hurt it. You know what your reaction should be. You know, when you're in something that's new, a lot of times you don't know. And so what happens is when we have a head coach who's, let's say, primarily a defensive coach, well, he has to be careful, because when the players see that, they think that, you know, they get disciplined on offense, but because this guy works with the defense does not get disciplined, you know. And that's, you know, it's kind of like disciplining your kids, you know. I mean, if I grew up with 6 brothers, my dad would spank us. Well, I had a girl. I never spanked my daughter. I wanted to a couple of times, but it was hard. My wife did. My wife spanked, you know, but now if I had a son, it'd have been easy. So I'm just saying, sometimes it's endemic to what our environment or our characteristics are. I'm an offensive coach, so I have a tendency to, you know, oh, that wasn't a penalty, that's a bad call, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah. And then the defense does the same thing. Well, that wasn't interference, that wasn't this. But yes, you have a referee who says, you know, who says this is what it was. And when you have a coach that's one-sided, a lot of guys on the team will know, they'll see through it really fast. And that's where your teams get kind of out of whack. You know, the defense is real good, but the offense, because he's not going to spend any time with those guys. That's what he wants to do. He wants to do the defensive side of it. And coach, the thing about what's good about coach, he'd go down there with the defense, and then during team, he was with the offense.
Yeah.
He'd be with the defense going through individual and watching him work and a couple of their, you know, tackling drills and that kind of stuff. And then when it got on offense, he'd come, you know, coach, he'd go help the offense. And so he was trying to be a teacher on both sides of the ball. So now he's looked at totally differently, you know?
Yeah.
But I was with guys, I was with a couple of guys who were, you know, they were a little one-sided, but, you know, it's usually whatever the head coach's forte is, he's got to be very careful that he doesn't get that imbalance of priorities. In other words, your whole team should be your priority, not just the offense or the defense. So, when they understand how to run a team, you make sure you spend time in your offense, spend time with your defense, spend time with your special teams. Coach Carroll does all of that.
Yeah.
I've been with coaches who just stay in the offensive room. I've been with coaches. Nick Saban he was in the defensive room, but I'll say one thing: he didn't wear his feelings on his sleeve when the offense was kicking the defensive's butt. He would go, "Man, you guys were good today." He said, "That's what I want to see." And yeah, he'd get mad at the defense, but he had enough in him to tell the offense, "Nice job," So that when your head coach is that way, he's going to develop a more team attitude. But you're right, though. There's a lot of coaches that are coaching today that are usually successful on one side or the other, but for whatever reason, they can't make it both. And you're wondering about that with Lincoln? Yeah, I'm wondering it too.
Yeah.
Can he build a defense up? And players gravitate towards him because of his offense. He's not going to he won't have a hard time getting a quarterback or a really good receiver or an offensive lineman. He'll have a hard time sometimes getting one of those other guys if he doesn't spend more time on that area.
Yeah.
And so I just saw they just signed just got a commitment from a big defensive tackle.
Yeah, they did a transfer from Georgia.
Yeah. So, I know this. I know that Lincoln believes in the guy that's the defensive coordinator. He believes in him. So what he's basically saying is, hey, he didn't have enough material over there to have the kind of defense he wanted. So they're probably trying to fix that now. But if he thought he was no good, he should get rid of him. But
he's staking his career on him, so he must believe in Alex Grinch. The rest of the world looks at it and we say, well, I'm a little bit more skeptical, but Lincoln knows, I suppose. We'll see what he does.
Well,
he has a better roster this year. He's going to have a better roster. If he can't make it work, he can't make it work, and we'll know.
Yeah, I think I just know how. I mean, deep inside, I know Lincoln's. He knows what the issues are. He's a big picture guy. He's a lot like Pete. He's a very big picture guy.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't think he'll have a problem.
Yeah.
I don't. Matter of fact, it would shock me if he did.
Yeah. All right. Last topic. I've kept you on a long time, but I think people are going to like it. So, last topic. You've done a lot of recruiting offensive linemen. You've done a lot of scouting offensive linemen for the NFL. What is it you're looking for when you're looking for a guy that you think could be a great offensive lineman? And you've coached some great ones. What are you looking for?
Well, I don't think dimensions is not as important. When I say dimensions, like 6'6", 6'5", I don't care if it, guards 6'1", I don't. What I'm basically looking for is I'm looking for guys that have a passion to play football, that are football players. When you watch them, they enjoy playing. In other words, they're blocking a guy and the play is almost over, but they decide, I'm gonna go over here and block this guy too. And so then all of a sudden, okay, now this guy's got the kind of effort and the passion I'm looking for. Now, what about his abilities? His abilities, are they showing up? Yes. Well, and like I tell you, I'm looking for some guys got some passion and ability. I want them to have ability, but I've seen too many guys play offensive line who didn't have a lot of ability, but had tremendous passion, and they played good. But when they got to pro football, they couldn't last.
Right.
Fred Matua, who I love dearly, and he passed away, but I loved him because he loved to play.
Yeah.
He loved to play, but he didn't have the same kind of power and this strength that Deuce Latouille or Ryan Khalil had.
Right.
But he made our team better. He was fun to be around, and he loved playing offensive line. And I just if a guy, to play offensive line, you have to be a kind of an unselfish kind of person. I mean, you're going to get blamed for when things aren't going good, and you're not going to get too many accolades when things are going great. So you just you gotta be a real team guy. That's what you gotta be. And so I'm looking for a guy who's got a passion to be a football player. He'll be a great team guy, and he's got high effort. He's got high effort. It's just hard to turn down guys who have high effort, and when they have high effort, effort beats a lot of things. Yeah. I can say that right now. Yeah. So, yeah. So that's really, I mean, there are a lot of little things I mentioned. Like I like them to have a father in their life only because, when I coach them, if I coach them a little hard and get after them a little bit, I don't want them to look at me and sulk. I want them to kind of grit their teeth and go, I got you. Yeah. I got you, And so that's important. If I had a choice of some guy that didn't have a father, some guy that did, I'd probably go with the one that did have a father, because I know that his dad's probably kicked his butt a few times, and he doesn't mind his butt getting kicked as long as I'm trying to make him better, Right. So,
what sort of athletic skills are you looking for? If size doesn't matter as much, what does matter?
Well, what matters is if you're talking at the tackle position, arm length. You need some arm length. Why? Because you're going to get these rushers that are fast. You need to be able to stick your hands out on them. Like Charles Brown had good arm length. Sam Baker didn't have great arm length, but he had great technique. Yeah. Tyron Smith had both. He had great arm length and great technique. Yeah. So, but you want your good arm length. And if I was designing a guy, I'd want him a little more short waisted. Shorter legs, 30, 32, 34, that's good enough, because the longer the legs, the harder it is to control their body and bend and all that kind of stuff. I've coached a couple guys who are 6'7", and they're just not good leverage players. You'll find one every now and then, like a Jonathan Osgood.
Jonathan Ogden. Tony Vaselli. Tony Vaselli was probably 6'7", right?
Yeah. You find those guys every now and then that can naturally just bend down and come off the ball, and usually you just can't find those guys. I mean, they're hard to find. Yeah. Usually they're in the 6'2" to 6'5" range. That's usually where they are. And I saw a guy who was 6'8", looked like a monster one time. I said he couldn't bend. Yeah. But he was knocking these high school kids around, and I said, he gets in college, he's going to get knocked around. Then if he manages to get to pros, he's going to get killed. Yeah. He was trying to, we recruited a guy like that, Jermaine Affetti, played at Texas A&M. I watched film. I said, this guy's got to be the worst big time player I've ever seen. And they're going, well, no, he's got a high grade for being drafted. I go, he's got terrible footwork. He doesn't give good effort. And I said, I don't really see it. And then all of a sudden we started talking, and now we're not watching anything else but him move his feet. And the more we watch him move his feet, we go, wow, this guy can move his feet pretty good for a big guy. And then we started going, well, he's got big old arms. He's strong. Well, let's take the guy. So we took him in the first round, and he came in, and I told him, I said, I'm going to find out if you were you had bad coaching or you were a bad student. I'm going to find that out in the next year. And after his year was over, I said, you're a bad student.
So you had there were some guys during Pete Carroll's time at SC that everybody knew when they were in high school they were going to play tackle. Tyrone Smith, Winston Justice. When those guys were in high school, everybody said that guy's going to play in the NFL. I mean, the physical skills were pretty remarkable. But then Pete also had some tackles, Jacob Rogers, Charles Brown, where, they were recruited by people, but it wasn't, but not like that. And,
Right.
but obviously somebody saw something in those guys and realized, no. I understand that this is not Tyrone Smith, but there's something about this guy. I think it can be great.
One of the things, Chris, I want to do is when I finish my book, I want to go around to high schools and I want to talk to them about effort.
Yeah.
That's what I want to talk to them about effort, and that you can teach effort. People don't think, I believe you can teach it. We do it all the time as coaches. That's what we demand. We demand effort. We emphasize effort, and we praise effort. And so I think that teachers should do the same. Why? Because effort can make you good at a lot of things. A lack of effort, you're only going to be good at the thing that you want to do. Hey, I like English. Okay, so you're good at English, but you're terrible at math, you're terrible at Spanish, you're terrible at history. Well, why? Well, because you don't give any effort. So I just think that effort is a huge key in all of this. If they're high effort guys, I can work with those guys. I can make a high effort guy a good player. And you're right. When you're at SC, we can get our pick usually of the guys we want. Matter of fact, coach got mad at me one day. He goes, "You're not recruiting any of these guys. UCLA's got 7 offensive linemen signed." And I said, "Coach, those guys aren't good enough."
Yeah.
He goes, "Oh, well, I don't know if you know." And I go, "Coach, I watched them. They're not good enough." And so a year later, or 2 years later, I said, "Coach, here's the 7 guys they recruited. There's one guy left. One."
Yeah.
And he's a backup.
Yeah.
And he goes, "You couldn't wait for this day, could you?" I said, "No, I'm just trying to tell you. I looked at all of them. If they were high effort guy, then I was going to go, whoa, maybe I better take another look. But if they were kind of a big guy that doesn't give a lot of effort, but he's got the size and dimensions, well, I wasn't interested in that guy. I just, because it's like it's like a beautiful woman. I mean, she may be the most beautiful woman you've ever seen, but then you go out with her for a date, and then you realize she's a nightmare. Yeah. So we need some substance here,
Yeah.
I mean, she goes out on a date, she wants substance. The guy goes on a date, he wants substance. You can't live without substance too long. You're not going to, and when I say substance, I mean, I'm talking about character, to be good, to want to be something special and all that kind of stuff. You just need people that's got some substance to them, Yeah. And, I usually could tell when I went into a house and sat down with the parents. That was pretty enlightening too. The mom would say, "Well, I think you're getting a good one." And the dad would say, "Well, hey, you just make sure you give good effort, son." And I'm like, "Hey, I feel good walking out of here because I got a guy at home saying it. I got the mom, I mean, it's like, you just kind of can get a feel for it." Then I've been in other homes where, I wasn't impressed with the way the parents were. And then I get the kid and I'm not impressed with the way he is either. So you make bad decisions sometimes because why? You look at his size, you look at his arms, you go, "Oh my God, he's big, he's strong." But he really doesn't have the desire needed to be a great player. And you don't need to be a great player. When I was as a coach, I didn't need a great player. I wanted to have great players, but I didn't need a great player. I needed guys with high effort because you know what? I can always live with guys who give high effort.
Yeah.
I'll always be happy. I got guys with high effort. The guys that don't give good effort, they could be the best looking one in the world. I have little use for them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, makes sense. Well, Pat, I appreciate it. I held you here longer than I had anticipated, but that was a great interview. I appreciate your insight. We're going to do this too again at some point. Maybe during the season I'll have you on and we can talk about.
Well, I'm going to the Notre Dame game this year. I went 2 years ago, and we always like to go to the away game there. So
yeah, I'll see you there because I'll be there as well, and we may even be on the same bus. We were on the same bus coming back last time. Actually, I was sitting in the back. So
oh, you were okay.
yeah. So maybe we'll see each other. But I appreciate the interview. That was good stuff.
Well, one of the things I'm trying to do is be as truthful as I can be.
Yeah.
And one of the things if I was still needing a job or still need to do this or whatever, I'd probably sugarcoat some of those guys like Holtz and Lou. But no, this is about being truthful and about being honest about what's going on. And I'm doing that in my book. I'm doing it in my interviews. And if they don't like it, well, tough. I don't have to work for you anymore anyway.
I can tell you that we all appreciate it. So
yeah,
thanks for the honesty. Have a
You're
good
welcome.
one.
You're welcome. Thank you. You too. Thank you. Bye-bye. Fight on.
Fight on.